Meanwhile, the tax bill passed through the Senate Budget Committee yesterday by a squeaker, I believe it was. One vote. And last night, Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders were debating along with, it wasn't just Cruz, right? Who was the Republican?
Scott.
Tim Scott, right.
And
Maria Cantwell. And here is Ted Cruz trying to argue that their tax bill cuts taxes for everyone. Now, the bottom line is it doesn't. The vast majority of cuts, the most durable cuts, the ones that are actually going to last, are on just the incredibly wealthy people. In fact, they also, all of their presumptions about their arguments, the rhetoric, it's actually pretty funny. There was a big fight about automatic triggers. That if the magic of cutting taxes didn't create more revenue, in other words, if what happens to the United States is the same thing that happened to Kansas, then taxes will be raised automatically because the growth predictions were not met. And the arguments are so twisted. Well, no, the growth won't happen if you have triggers because people need to know that the triggers will never be fired. So you can't put triggers in there because it's like it would be the functional equivalent of tapping your heels together 3 times but putting something in between it. It would ruin the magic. But here is Ted Cruz making his case for the taxes and then Bernie basically laughing him off.
Well, let me tell you, if you're a taxpayer, this bill benefits you. Our objective, we should be working to cut taxes for every single taxpayer in America. If you care about jobs and wages, if you're a young person who wants more opportunity, if you want to see wages going up, you're a winner. Right now, America has the highest corporate tax rate in the developed world. This bill cuts taxes on small businesses and job creators, which the Council of Economic Advisors says will benefit every family by about $4,000 a year. If you're a parent, you're a winner. This doubles the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. And if you want to see a brighter future for the next generation, cutting taxes and economic growth is the way to go.
Thank you. Senator Sanders.
Gee, Ted, what tax bill were you talking about? Surely not the one that's coming before the Senate. Here are the facts. Despite what President Trump says, despite what my colleagues here will tell you, the tax bills both in the House and the Senate give the lion's share of tax breaks to the top 1%. 50% of the tax breaks in the House bill go to the top 1%. 60% go to the top 1% in the Senate bill. Now, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the rich are becoming phenomenally rich, when corporate profits are at an all-time high, while the middle class struggles and we have 40 million people living in poverty, who in their right mind, in all due respect, believes that we should give massive tax breaks to millionaires, billionaires, and large corporations? Here's something else. This legislation will grow the deficit by $1.4 trillion.
Now, that is, the deficit stuff is one of those unfortunate sort of relics. It's a problem for Democrats to argue about the deficit. There may be some value in it in terms of arguing to the parliamentarian that this bill is not eligible for reconciliation. And there may be, I understand, political expediency that supposedly this is going to, the idea of a deficit sort of triggers the flakes and the corkers who are, I don't know, gold bugs and worry about the deficit. But the problem with this is that this bill is not going to just expand the deficit by $1.4 trillion because that number just goes a 10-year out number because they, again, want to try and make it fit within the rules in the Senate to be eligible for 51 votes. But here's the other important part. That projection is based upon the fantastical notion that you're going to get such amazing growth from the cuts in taxes that it's actually going to cause more people to pay more taxes and your revenue is going to go up. That is the magical thinking that destroyed the Kansas economy. So much so that every Republican in the Kansas legislature voted to repeal those taxes 4 or 5 years later. So the deficit's going to be much larger than that. And then at one point, maybe it's 7 years out, maybe it's 8 years out, 10 years out, who knows? Republicans will be back in office. Maybe it'll be Democrats back in office. And then you're going to start hearing, we've got to cut the deficit and we've got to start where the money is. That is Social Security and Medicare, which incidentally, statutorily, can't actually contribute to the deficit. But that's how this game is played. So when Democrats now, or independents, or anybody, starts talking about the deficit as the problem here, understand that's going to come back to bite us in the ass down the road. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos